Hey everyone, Brandon here with Galloway Precision. Today we are going to go over the installation of our newest trigger. This one is for the SAR USA SAR Silamaz SAR9. As you know, I've been gushing about this thing quite a bit lately. I do enjoy it quite a bit. Let's see if we can get the camera a little bit better. There we go. Alright, so this is the Arminius trigger for the SAR9 series of pistols. Named it after the German chieftain who destroyed 3 legions of Romans in battle in what was once Germania, and laid such waste to them that the rest of the Roman Empire from then on didn't try and take Germania at all above the Rhine River. So very fitting for this pistol that's built like a tank and is definitely built around being a service pistol and a gunfighter pistol. Alright, so here we have the Arminius. Alright, so let's go over tools you're going to need. You're going to need your bench block. You need a small flathead screwdriver. You need your 1/16 punch. You need a 2mm punch. You need your 3/32 punch and your brass hammer, polymer hammer, or combo like so. Alright, so let's go ahead and lock and clear. We're visually and physically empty. Let's go ahead and start by stripping the slide. Alright. Next, we're going to take and flip it upside down. And you can see we're in a hurry. I've beat up the frame, just tapping it back in. Obviously, we're not going to do that on yours at home. But we do need to take this pin out of the safety. And what I have found to be the easiest thing to do, so we'll take our bench block and flip it upside down. Take our 1/16 and start from the bottom, because this way we actually don't have to remove the pin completely from the safety. And for those that have been asking, yes, the next thing being designed is the safety delete bar. Alright, so tap that bad boy out. Now you can tap it all the way out if you want, but you can get it to right about there, and this piece will just come right off. Now you're probably going to need to use your flathead to get up under it, just so you have the room to get a hold of it, because it is designed very well. It's very slim, so it's hard to get a hold of. Alright, so next what you're going to do is you're going to take the safety, you're going to turn it like it's on, you're going to push it, and at the same time what you're going to do, let's see if we can get up in here. Alright, now when it's normally in play, there you have fire, there you have safe. And what you can see it doing is it will push up the trigger bar when it's safe. So the trigger just can't do anything. You can pull the trigger all day long, it ain't going to do nothing. Alright, so with the safety all the way on like so, see how it pushes the bar up? Helps if it's actually cocked. Push the safety all the way up, it lifts the bar, and it's an actual mechanical stop. Okay, so recock that. Take your safety off. What you're going to do is turn it up, and you'll see right here you have this little nub. Alright, that's what actually turns the trigger bar up when the safety's on. You're going to push and twist like that, and we'll show you when we get the fire control unit out, but there's a specific cut. You just get it right in there, and then this thing just comes right on out. When you get it to this side, you'll turn it to where you can see on the inside, you'll see where the cutout is. You'll turn it to where that part comes out, and your safety will come completely out. So set that off to the side. Next, we're going to take our 3/32. We're going to knock out the front locking block pin. Alright, set it off to the side. Now, we're going to take our 3/32 and we're going to tap. We're not going to hit hard. Just give it a light tap. And it may take a couple, because what we're doing is it's going to push out, and it may not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But you get it lined up. Give it a hard enough knock that it'll push the side, and you may have to angle it to do this too. Alright, so that's what we're going for right there. And the reason it does this is because this part of the pin's recessed so that this slips on nicely. You take your flathead, and we're just going to pop the takedown off. Alright, so easily comes off. It's got enough flex to it. We're going to be taking off, put on, taking off, put on without issue. Alright, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to push in on the barrel lock, the actual takedown itself. And you'll just grab this pin and slide it right on out. Alright, and then let the detent up, turn it over, take the lock and spring out of there, set them off to the side. Now, your whole subassembly, your chassis is going to come right out of the frame. Okay, set your frame off to the side. Now, one of the things I really like about this design, and I went over in the parts plan video, is the way that everything's held in this chassis, and the moment you knock this pin out, you can actually get to everything. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and knock out our trigger pivot pin, and that'll allow us to pull out the locking block and the slide stop. Now the slide stop spring, this little V here, and the slide lock goes right there. Okay, set that off to the side. And go ahead and pull our trigger and fire control unit out as one. Set our chassis down. Now, we'll talk about the safety part for a second. We'll go ahead and pull our trigger out. Trigger bar, I should say, and trigger assembly. Pull that off. Now, you can see in the fire control unit the cut. Okay. So what we'll probably be doing, since we have this adjustment screw here that goes into this detent, as we will design it to where the safety will fill this and use the tension here to stay in place, just like the regular safety does, but of course without there actually being a safety, it'll just be a replacement bar. Alright, so now you can see on mine we've got this big hole here. Reason being, these are blind pinned at the factory. So you're going to take your 2mm punch, and you put it on the top pin, not the bottom, the top pin. And you're going to drive it through and out of the trigger. Now, not all of you will end up with a big hole. I was a little overzealous and hit it pretty hard right off the first time, and it just busted out. But we're not using this trigger anymore, so just set it off to the side. It's still usable, just ugly. Set it off to the side. Set your pin off to the side. Alright, now take and line up your trigger bar like so, to where you can see the pin through it. And then I like to use my bench block and just get it started on there, and then we'll flip it over, drive it home with the brass, and we will make sure that it is equidistant on both sides so it doesn't hang up in the frame by tapping it with our 2mm and checking both sides. Alright, so we're good. Everything's okay. So we're ready to go ahead and put it back together. So first, reattach the trigger return spring, and yes, we will be doing spring kits for these. We've already got some springs for other pistols that will fit this. We're just working on the trigger return and some other stuff. Alright, so we're back together with our fire control unit. Go ahead and take your chassis. Put your fire control unit into the rear. Now you're going to take your locking block, making sure to hold the spring and the slide lock until you get them in there, and then you can squeeze the chassis around them so they can't move. We're going to line up the Arminius and get everything lined up. We're going to take our pin, our trigger pivot pin, and also holds the chassis together. Take our polymer hammer. We're going to drive it home. Now this isn't going to do anything because it allows this to move, but it'll at least let you see if you hold the fire control unit in place and move, everything's moving correctly. That's what we're going for. Pushing on the trigger forward and back, make sure everything's moving, nothing's binding. Alright, so now we're ready to put the chassis back in the frame. Let's go ahead and put the chassis back in. And we're going to start by putting in our front locking block pin. Use your polymer hammer If you don't have a polymer hammer, you can use brass. Just be very careful, cognizant of what you're doing. Give it a tap so it's equidistant. You do have a detent that sticks out of the locking block and actually interacts with pin. That's why that pin's got a center cut in it. Alright, so next we're going to take and put our safety back in. Putting it back in is the harder part. You just got to kind of wiggle it until you get it all lined up, and then you're there. Alright, and lastly, we're going to put our takedown back in. Now, as with any firearm like this that has a takedown similar to this, you need to make sure that the spring is seated in the takedown plunger completely. Alright, so now we are ready to put the takedown back together. As with any takedown that uses a plunger spring setup like this, make sure that your spring is definitely in the pocket of the plunger. The SAR doesn't have it, but other pistols do. If there's a pocket inside the frame for the spring, make sure it's seated in there as well, because what can happen is, if it's not all in there correctly, when you go to compress this, you'll notice it's really, really hard to compress. And while the gun will go back together, you're not going to get it back apart. So definitely be cognizant of that. Make sure that it's moving very easily like that. All right. The 45-degree deep cut goes to the rear, and the flat and the taller end 45-degree cut go to the front. All right, so we're going to compress that and take our pin, slide it on through, make sure it's equidistant on both sides. You're going to take your takedown, make sure you match it back up to the way that the frame goes, like so. All right. Doesn't matter which side you start on. What I like to do sometimes is take it upside down and just pull, and it'll pop right back in place. I'm going to pull down on it, make sure everything's moving. Last, we're going to put the other side of our safety back on. So get it started with your polymer like that, and then you're going to take your 3/32 punch, line it up on the pin, finish tapping it home, and it'll end up flush or just about flush. If you got any little bits sticking out and you want to make it equidistant so it doesn't bother your hand, tiny little tap, there you go, we're all good. All right, now we're ready to put the slide back on, do a functions test, and we'll be done. Let's go ahead and reassemble. The first thing you're going to do is rag it all the way to the rear, place the safety on, attempt to pull the trigger. Trigger does not fall. Safety off, pull the trigger and hold, rack the slide, one reset, pull. Function test is good. You are good to go. Your Arminius is now installed in your SAR, and you are ready to go do the shooting. But we're looking at about 20 to 25% reduction in overall trigger travel with the built-in pre-travel stop, and then the built-in post-travel stop on the back side of the trigger. I think a lot of you are going to be very happy with this trigger. I myself am very happy with it. You see we've written on here we're going to be getting it milled here pretty soon. Next on the list is spring kit, guide rod, and optic mount plate. We've already got the drawings sent off to a couple different shops, so we should have a working sample here very shortly. And but as I showed before, we'll go ahead and show here. This is the first 3D printed sample. These we're going to get made out of aluminum, just because it's going to work better. Metal on metal is always better when it comes to the optic type things. But that's the first one we're looking at. We may do a couple different designs. Asked a lot of people about it, still getting feedback. Most of you seem to have liked either plain flat or flat with a built-in rear and a 3D printed front, because they use Glock style sights, so easy fix there. We're still working on other stuff too as well, so definitely keep an eye out. Like I said, I think Eric's probably tired of hearing me talk about how great this weapon is, but I gotta say, man, I keep saying it, I keep singing its praises, but for under 300 bucks, you're getting a really good pistol. So that's going to wrap it up, guys. Pretty easy install. I know I say that in every video, but this one is really, there's not a whole lot of moving parts to it. And outside of just having to knock the blind pin out, it's pretty straightforward and simple. So if you got any questions, feel free to email me at tech, that's Tango Echo Charlie Hotel, at GallowayPrecision.com. Be sure to follow us on social media here on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe below. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Gunstreamer, and Vimeo. And be sure to go by the website or the Facebook page, sign up for the weekly flash sale newsletter, see what we're going to be putting on sale every week. And as always, be safe, be accurate, and God bless.